right. Excited to get back at it. Certainly a fun road trip for us and the opportunity to go play a road opponent in the Big Ten. Pleased with the way our guys performed and excited the way they were able to handle business. And they've already, started attacking this week. You had an opportunity to play a really good team. Coach Bielema has done an unbelievable job there at Illinois. He's a guy that I've followed throughout my career, even back to his days when he was at Iowa and Kansas State and Wisconsin as a young defensive coach. And then what he's been able to do there at Illinois is really impressive. I've always felt like watching his teams, they have a clear identity. They don't beat themselves. They play really hard. They're physical. I think all those things show up with this team as well. They're playing really good football right now. So certainly a fun challenge for us. And again, expecting our fans to make an impact on this game, make our environment really special like they have all season. I think that'll be a benefit to us as we step out on the field on Saturday.
Right, all right, Zach.
Sure, the shutout felt really good on Friday night. After watching the tape, how do you feel your defense played on Friday night?
Yeah, I think we had some really good moments. More proud of some guys upholding the standard when they got their opportunity to play. Sometimes games like that, you always want to give opportunities for guys to continue to develop and grow. And we had some guys that stepped in on the field that I thought played well when they got their opportunities. There's plenty of things, though, that, looking at that game that we can go attack and improve on.
Back left, Pat.
Kind of touched on it a little bit, but what's been the difference from a 5-7 Illinois team last year to one that's in the top 20?
Well, I mean, they're doing an unbelievable job attacking the ball and protecting the ball. I think their quarterback's thrown 1 interception this season. I think they've had 8 picks on defense and caused 10 fumbles on defense. So they're a team that swarms. When you can win the turnover margin, you're going to have a lot of success. They've outrushed several of their opponents when you can, win the physical battle up front as far as being able to move the ball. They're really sound in special teams, do a really good job in special teams, have dynamic returners. So I think all those things, they're playing really complementary football, and their quarterback's athletic. They have good wideouts, that do a really good job. So they are a balanced team, and when you have good balance, it's hard to take away a team's strengths.
Back right here.
Watching film, what do you think of Illinois' wide receivers, specifically Pat Bryant? I think he has almost half of their touchdowns for the year.
Yeah, I think they're really talented, but really both sides, at wide outside, for Bryant as well, Sakari Franklin as well. I mean, those guys are really talented players. They do a good job of utilizing their tight ends, so I think they have a good passing attack. And one of the things they probably, show that they can do the best is throwing the ball over the top. Right? They do a really good job on the 9 ball and the fade ball. Those guys adjust to it well, and they take shots down the field, which makes it a challenge.
Front left, James.
How similar is what Lanning's doing offensively to Will, given their crossover at UTSA?
Yeah, I think you see flavors, that fit, similar. Obviously, they both come from a similar tree, and there's some pieces there that there's a little bit of carryover from what Will does for us and what, Barry's doing there for them. But I also think there's some identity pieces that you can say, okay, you can see that's coming from the head coach. And I think all great offensive coaches do a good job of cherry picking things that their team does well and other things that people are doing across the league. So I would say that they've morphed a little bit from exactly who they were at UTSA before, just like Will's kind of morphed and our offense has morphed here at Oregon.
Left, middle, Jedd.
You mentioned Altmaier only had that 1 interception this year. Just where have you seen him growing, and what have you seen from him on tape?
Yeah, I just think he's a guy that causes a lot of issues with his athleticism and his ability. He's been able to extend plays. He's got, great feet, so he can run. I think that's always a challenge defensively when you're defending a guy that can also run and throw the ball extremely well. But he's been a good decision maker. You don't get to this point in the season and only have 1 interception and be a bad decision maker. So he gives his guys an opportunity to go make plays on the ball. I think they do a really good job calling a game for him and allowing him to play within the system. And then he does a great job with his feet when those opportunities are taken away.
All right, Zach.
Curious if you have an update on Ferguson, Birch, and Bedford.
Yeah, wait as the season goes here and how the week goes to see where those guys are at and if they're available for us this weekend.
Back left, Pat.
Your thoughts on just their offensive line? Bielema was very high on Geske, their offensive lineman, said he maybe played his best game of his career. Just your thoughts on that matchup?
Yeah, I think, again, it goes they have proven to be a physical team that's, interested in making sure that they can establish the run. They do a great job of that, of keeping balanced, even when, they've had times a hard time establishing it. They've always made sure they always go to it and they don't give up on the run game. And that's been something that's created a lot of success for them. But it's a group that plays really well together. You can tell they're in sync, and they do a really good job.
Front left, James.
17, Akis was Conference Defensive Player of the Week, had a big game this past game, but it's done well all season. What makes him so disruptive in their defense?
Yeah, I just think if you just turn on the film, you see relentless effort from this defense consistently. Even when balls might get down the field on them, you see the way they chase the ball, attack the ball. They're consistently attacking the ball, and you can tell they preach it. That's not something that happens on accident, and he's certainly one of those guys that does that.
Middle left, Kirk.
You guys were ranked number one in the AP and the coaches poll. Just what does it mean for you as a leader of this program to bring it back to number one for the first time since 2012?
Who cares?
Back right, Aaron.
A new development we've seen on social media the last couple of weeks is the word blur. Can you give some more context just behind where the word blur came from and just kind of the origin of it and how you guys use it in your program?
I think we'd have to pull out Webster's dictionary here to figure out, the context. But for us, it's a deep ball that's connected, right? And I don't know where it started, but whenever we connect on one, that's what we pull out.
Front left, James.
Jog my memory here of exactly your relationship with Disher, because it goes back 20 plus years. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he was living with y'all. He wasn't the last one in the Elizabeth Street house at the end when you were at Park Hill and he was at Kearney.
We never lived together, but we're really good friends. Went to college together. He went to high school with my wife, so certainly have known Robbie for a long, long time and stayed good friends throughout the profession. He's doing a really good job.
Back left, Matt.
How do you have your team not care about the number one ranking and avoid the discussion and the attention that comes with it?
I think it's really simple for us when our messaging hasn't changed the entire year. You don't sit halfway through a meal and say you're done eating when there's still a lot of food left on the plate. And that's where we're at. We're at the midpoint of the season. We're not done yet. There's a lot of things that we still want to accomplish. So that doesn't really matter for us.
Well, we got for you, Coach.
Appreciate it.
Hi, Brian. Defensively, what's maybe your biggest area of concern? Like, what's maybe an area you guys want to clean up the most?
Well, coming out of the game, I think when you look at the game, the first thing you recognize, we lost the turnover battle. Anytime you play in a game like that hurts you. We didn't create any turnovers. That's the first thing. The second thing was the explosive plays. Too many explosive plays. So right out of the gate, that's the first thing. And then we didn't win the rushing yards. So, all of those things have got to get fixed if we're going to win a game like that.
Far left, Joe Nugent, WCMH.
Is there any update on Josh Simmons, his status?
Yeah, he'll be out for the season. Yeah, he I won't get into all the details of it, but yeah, it's a knee injury, and so he'll be out.
What kind of progress did he make since joining this program about a year and a half ago?
Oh yeah, no, he really had made a lot of progress and was playing very, very well. So big loss, but got an opportunity to for another guy to step up. Zen will be in there and help have a good week of practice this week. And I thought he stepped up and did a nice job in the Oregon game. He's a veteran guy who's played a lot of football here in the program, not as much in games, but goes against really good players every day in practice. So I think he was able to go into that game in a big environment and build confidence coming out of it.
Third row left, Andy Andrews, 11 Warriors.
Yeah, I know you guys have a high pressure rate looking at some of those numbers, but are you happy with the pass rush, the amount it's getting home, and maybe the scheme that's being drawn up to get after the quarterback?
Again, I'm not happy with anything right now, but certainly we want to get more pressure on the quarterback. There's no question. And it's the coach's job to make sure that we put our players in a situation, an environment to be successul. So that's the first thing we got to look at, and then it's the player's job to go do it and execute it. So all those things were part of the conversation this past week, and we definitely need to do a better job there.
Stefan Kreisny, Cleveland.com.
You mentioned Zen there. He's been part of the program, even if he hasn't played as much in games. Where have you kind of seen him grow the most throughout the past few years that gives you confidence that he can slot in there?
What you see every day in practice, and a veteran guy that's, it's been in the program for a while, so he knows what we're doing. And then what you see every day in practice. And, that's the thing about being a backup is, you never know when your time is going to be. And then all of a sudden you get thrust into a game like that one. But he was ready. Was it perfect? No, but, he did some good things. And so, he's got some good guys right next to him with Donovan and Seth that can, help communicate some of those things that are going on with the calls. But again, that's the other thing I try to tell guys like that. When you're going against Jack and JT and Kenyatta every day in practice, you should be able to go out in those environments and compete and have confidence.
How much does it help him to have Donovan right there next to him as
Yeah,
well?
I think it really helps. Yeah, just having veteran guys right there to communicate what's going on with the calls, because as you know, so much of the offensive line is the communication and what's going on with the calls and making sure everybody's on the same page, and then making adjustments based on what we're seeing in the game, and anything that may be coming up, if we need to add something or just make an adjustment based on what we're seeing. Those are all things that are important.
Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, rumor last week that Lathan Ransom was injured in practice. Can you address that and anything there?
Yeah, no other updates on any injuries right now. Yeah.
Jeremy Birmingham, the podcast.
Ryan, you said before, after games that don't go your way, you guys have to evaluate whether it's coaching, talent, or just their execution, or scheme, talent, or execution. As you look back at Oregon, do you pinpoint one of those as a problem? And if so, what's the step to address it? Because there's obviously other talent-equated games coming.
Yeah, I think the first thing, like you said, you look at the personnel. You have to make sure we got the right people in the right spots. I think we do. Maybe we can tweak a few things, but I think we have the right people in the right spots. Then it comes down to scheme. I think there's some things that we can do better for sure, putting guys in better situations to be successful. And then there's the coaching, and I think we definitely can do a better job there of making sure that the guys understand exactly what they're doing, getting them lined up, and then going from there. But I think it's a combination of scheme and coaching.
Don Taberry, WBNS.
What you've said from the get-go, this is going to be a long season, especially with the playoff. Some are compared to maybe like to an NFL season. It's hard to go undefeated, period. Not happy with the loss, but what do you say to the kids and everyone, because the goals are still there?
Yeah, well, like you come out of the game and you got to identify the things that didn't work, which we did. Make some adjustments. Do we need to overhaul everything? No, we don't need to overhaul everything, but there are some things, the way that we're coaching things, the way that we're scheming some things, we need to make adjustments there. There's no question. But once all that settles, you realize that there's a lot of football ahead of us, and you look ahead at what we got in the second half of the season, and then right here with Nebraska. And so you quickly move on to that and realize that there's a lot of teams across the country that have taken a loss. So now we got to go adjust and play our best football here in the second half of the season. You could have as many as 10 games from here on out. So that's important to make sure that we now move forward. We learn from the game, but we can't dwell on it. We got to move forward, and we got to focus on Nebraska.
With the way you're handling things now, has this allowed you maybe to get more involved with the defense now?
Yeah, definitely been in there more in the last week than I have in the past, and ultimately it's my job to make sure that all three phases are the way they're supposed to be. So I'm gonna make sure that gets done.
Dave Holmes, WSYX.
Yeah, Ryan, what was it about Dylan Raiola back when you guys were in on him that you liked? And also, 20 years ago when guys would decommit, or transfer, it was like, oh my goodness, the sky's falling. But now it's Quinn Ewers, Emory Jones, Dylan. I mean, every program has all these guys who were at one point in their pipeline. Are you able to take the emotion out of that as head coach when guys go elsewhere? So just kind of thoughts on Raiola and the past there.
Yeah, I think I heard a stat the other day that of the starting quarterbacks in the Big Ten, maybe it was like 14 or something like that have been transfers, so whether it's decommitments or transferring, it's part of the world that we live in right now. So, you just have to adapt to it. We try to make sure that we're retaining as many of our guys as possible. That's kind of the stability of our program and the culture of our program. But, so yeah, that's that. When it comes to, Dylan, I think he's got an opportunity to be a great player. I think he's already playing at a high level, and, he's got a lot of talent, and he's got a great family.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, as far as Quinchon, you said on the radio he's doing fine. How is he practicing this week, and whatever he may have been dealing with, did that have any effect at Oregon game, like the fumble?
No, it'll look close at that, but that wasn't an issue there. A minor procedure. I think he's actually feeling better now than maybe he did going into the Oregon game, so he's good.
Was it not? It was not something that was lingering before Oregon?
Yeah, it didn't affect the Oregon game. Okay. Yeah.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Denzel's a veteran for you guys who's played a lot of football, but obviously clearly didn't have his best game a couple of weeks ago. And I think we've had this conversation about other guys in the past, but striking that balance of letting a guy like that who has played a lot of football, done a lot of good things for you, figure it out versus maybe trying somebody else in that spot, like a Jermaine Matthews, who has been thrown in there at times. Was there any conversation like that happening throughout the game of, hey, let's give Denzel a series off, let him get his head together, and let's throw Jermaine Matthews out there just to see if we can get something different?
Yeah, it's definitely, part of the conversation, and you have to decide what gives you the best chance to win in that moment. And decision was made, and so we evaluate that and figure out if that's the right thing moving forward. But we believe in Denzel. We think he's a great player, and he did have a couple plays there that weren't good, and he would tell you the same thing. And so he came out last week and had a good week of practice. Needs another one this week, and he'll rebound and play well this week.
How do you feel about your secondary depth, cornerback and safety overall right now, 6 games into it?
Yeah. We probably have more depth at corner than at safety, but I feel like we do have enough guys back there to get what we need to get done.
Bill Landis, Kings of the North.
Ryan, are Jim and Larry on the same page with how to go about generating more pressure and the schematic tweaks you're talking about with the defense?
Yeah, for sure. I know that there was a point maybe early on when Jim got here where there was conversation about the jack and all that. But our goal is to put the best 4 rushers in the game, or maybe if there's 5, maybe there's 5, or whatever it is. And so that decision's been made, and we reevaluate those things. When you have to, certainly after a loss, but even during a bye week, you're going to do something like that. But no, I think I've watched closely, and I think that they're both on the same page. And we all want this week especially. We've wanted to look at everything, and nobody's feeling good about anything right now. It's just coming off of that thing. There's a lot of guys on edge, and that's the way it should be. After a loss, but no, they're on the same page. I think that's the point. And I've been in there the last week a little bit more and just evaluating everything. And I think the one thing is, there can be, conversation in the room, but when you leave the room, everybody's on the same page, and that's happening. I'm seeing that. But it's again our job as coaches to make sure we're putting them in the best position to be successful. And you got to evaluate it, and you got to be honest, and you got to make sure you're talking the truth in those moments. And I think that's happened the last week, and excited to get back on the field here.
And I know the job of any coordinator is just to sort of take the talent on hand and put those guys into the best position, like you're saying.
Right.
If you look at some of what Jim did at Oklahoma State and what he's doing now, it does look quite different in terms of like structure and fronts and all those things. What were the conversations like when you hired him about like, hey man, do your stuff, or was it no, we have our players here work around what we have on hand?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Yeah, I mean, my goal, bringing Jim in was to be the head coach of the defense and to run it. But there was also, we have, recruited very well in the defensive line. So, when he was at Oklahoma State, they didn't have, 4 down D linemen, and then certainly no depth behind it. So, he had to be creative about what he was doing there. Decision was made a long time ago that, we have the D linemen here at Ohio State that can play with 4 down linemen. Now, might we consider some different fronts and changing that up? I think it's all very good conversation, and we have to make sure that we're going down all those roads to make sure that we're putting these guys in a chance to be successful. We're making it not easy for the offense to just line up and know where we're coming from. So, but I think at the end of the day, to answer your question, it comes down to the personnel you have and where you are, and to put them in a chance to be successful. And I feel like we have plenty of D linemen here, and we have the right guys on the field. But we got to make sure that we are changing it up and making sure that it isn't just a 4-man rush straight all the time, for sure.
Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, you mentioned previously about Chip that he's a guy who will stick with the run. Against Oregon, second half, 12 rushes, 7 of those were running backs. Why did you guys get away from that? And obviously you moved the ball.
Right.
Why did it get away from that in that game?
No, I think probably the last drive probably skewed it a little bit because it was in a 2-minute drill. But I thought we had a good mix of run and pass in that game, and I think that we were explosive. I think we had 11 explosive plays, and a bunch of them were in the pass game. So I like the way he called it. And we do have to win the rushing yards though, so we got to keep hammering that. But no, I think the balance is what you're looking for there, and I like the way the guys came out and moved the ball down the field in the 2-minute drill. That part was good. Obviously, the end wasn't what we wanted, but I think that overall execution, you could see that we're in a position to go win games. Now we got to go win games, and a big part of that is what we're talking about here. Winning in the fourth quarter and finishing out games. So all things that we're looking at and talking about.
Is that a matter of him kind of feeling it in the moment and Will playing the way he was? You kind of go with what's working in that situation.
Yeah, a big part of it is what you're seeing too. For looks and I think there was some times where we were in 11 personnel and they had base in the game, and so there was some different things that they were doing. So I think that's the sign of a good offense, when you can quickly go to one thing based on what you're seeing. And now if all of a sudden we were just throwing the ball and it was a mess and we weren't completing the ball, then I think that would be the problem. But again, I thought we had a good mix there, and again, didn't finish it the way we wanted to.
Fifth row left, Noah Weisskopf, the Lantern.
Yeah, Ryan, how important do you think it was to have a bye week right after a loss to almost let that feeling sink in for the players, the coaching staff? Do you think that's significant?
I mean, it is what it is. It was a long week for all of us, and a lot of hours in here talking about it. And you sit on it and you chew on it, and then eventually you move on and you look forward, and that's kind of where we are. And we did that last Wednesday. Tuesday we came out here practice, and then Wednesday we said, okay, here's what we got moving forward. Here are the things that we got to get done and address them. So I think we did get an opportunity to get some guys some rest and get them healthy. Also get some younger guys a bunch of reps. So we got back here Sunday, practice on Sunday, and now have a team meeting here at 2:30 and get back to work on a Tuesday practice.
Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, I asked Jim after the game if maybe part of the defensive issues were sort of a shock to the system, not seeing that kind of speed in a game situation. He said it's possible. He said it's up to him to try to fix that and get that talent and quality better. How do you do that? I mean, you've got talent in practice, but how do you work that out?
Well, like you said, you got to find ways in practice, and that's been part of the conversation, as you can imagine, this past week, of putting those guys in that situation, challenging them more vertically in practice, because it's our job as coaches to put them in an environment so that they're ready to go. That's it. But you learn some hard lessons in a game like that when things like that get behind you. So it's our job as coaches. We got to own it and train these guys better.
Where are you with deep ball? The long passes, that's been an issue, sort of. Is that something you guys really need to focus on? Are you happy with where you are with it? Is that
No, not happy. No, and yes, we have to do a better job with that. So we'll be launching balls today.
Good, Rob? Yeah. Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Right, I know you said you don't have an injury update elsewhere, but do you have an update on Will? And then if he is out for as long as he has to be out?
Will Howard?
No, Will Kaczmarek.
Oh.
Where does the tight end position go for that?
We'll be out for a little while, but we feel like we have depth in that position. I thought G. Scott played one of his better games in terms of running routes down the field. That part was good, blocking, and then Jelani's going to have to step up now. Bennett Christian's going to have to step up. These guys are going to have to play, and we have to put them in there. But they've been training, they've been working, they've been practicing. They don't miss any reps. But now they're going to be thrust into it, and we knew this was going to happen. This is a great example. Second half of the season, here we go. So, but now they're going to be put into it, and so I think Keenan's done a nice job of building depth. Pat Gerd is in there as well. So all those guys are going to play.
You used Bennett a little bit in the run blocking. How important is he going to be moving forward with that, since Will is kind of your ace there in run blocking?
Yeah, Bennett's gotten better. He's gotten a lot better. Spring, you made some progress. Preseason, you started to see some more. He started to get more consistent. And then as the season's gone on, you've seen him improve, and now he's doing it in games. So, his physicality is going to help us, and he's done a good job running routes as well. So it's time for him to play anyways. So this has kind of happened at the right time.
Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Yeah, Ryan. Will said after the game the other night, maybe there's a lighter fire under us. You've said a couple times not happy with things or with anything you said earlier. Just the attitude, the approach, a chip on the shoulder since this loss. What's anything different? What's different about these guys and approach? Anything? Or
No, I don't think so. And I don't think Will meant it like that. I just think that he probably just meant it like we all do. That when you come from a loss, you just start to. It's like, you put patches or Band-Aids on things, and then all of a sudden, you go to a loss, it gets ripped open, and you just, you have a little bit more, harder conversations. You make bigger decisions, and you just drive it harder. It's just kind of the way it goes after a loss. But that's not anything like we haven't been going hard or pushing hard. I mean, we have been. I mean, we've been going 100 miles an hour around here. And I say to you guys all the time after every game, the issues are the issues. We got to address the issues. We got to address the issues. And we've been hammering that home, and the players have been going hard, practicing hard. So, I don't think that's the case. But I do think, we've got to figure out and And I think we have a really good plan for it. How to play better in that fourth quarter, and in those games, go win those games. And so, I mean, that's been a huge part of this conversation the past week.
Dan Holt, 11 Warriors.
You mentioned safety depth isn't as strong as corner. Who do you feel like would be the next man up there at safety if you guys do need someone to play more with the first team?
Jalen McLean's done a nice job. Malik Hartford's done a nice job. Those guys, have Malik's played some before, and Jalen's a good young player. So I'd probably say those guys. If you're looking at some backups there, it'd be those.
Do you feel like Jordan or Lorenzo could move and play safety too if needed?
Yeah, I think that's probably the flexibility of having the 3 safety system that would allow us some depth. Like I said before, I think we have enough to go play. So yeah, there's some flexibility there.
Austin Ward, the podcast.
I feel like we're probably belaboring this point, but when Nick Saban says that Ohio State's pass rush is antiquated, did you agree with that after what you saw last week? You prepared for a lot of offenses, and he knows a lot of defense. Is that an accurate description?
Well, when it doesn't work, I mean, it's accurate. It's not working. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's different strategies on how to go do that. But when you have the results that you do right now, then certainly it's not working, and that has to change.
Andy Backstrom, Letterman Road.
Yeah, Ryan, it's one thing to play here, it's another thing to suffer a loss here and respond to that. What do you see from Will specifically, Will Howard, and how he's kind of responded to the game at Oregon?
Yeah, I don't think anybody was hurting more than Will Howard after the game. I thought he played his heart out in the game, and it was a second short. And so, you don't just, when you have a bye week, you don't just get over it the next day. It's just not the way it works. And he took a couple days, but had a great energy today. Was in asking questions about, some of the past game with the offensive staff, bouncing around. He looks good. He had a really good practice on Sunday. So, he's ready to go play the second half of the season.
And then just to follow up, you mentioned several times being more involved with the defense. What does that exactly look like for you? Is it just in the meeting rooms? Are you working hands-on with players individually? What's got that balance for you?
Yeah, all the above. Yeah, on the field, in the meeting room. Whatever needs to get done is got to get done.
Adam King, WBMS.
Kind of going off that, Will, when you bring him here, you obviously have a mindset of what you want to see on the field, but you can't see it until you go up against someone like Oregon. There was questions about the big game moment. Looks like he handled it pretty well aside from some other things. Did that give you a lot of confidence moving forward in what he can do for this team and where he can lead you guys?
Well, like I said, the number one goal is to win. What's talked about the defense, and statistics and those things. Win. Same thing on offense. It's about winning. So I'd say the same thing about we didn't win. So it's a loss. But once you take that part out of it and you look at the way he competed, there was a lot of positives coming out that way. So we got to grow on it. So next time we're in that situation, we do win.
Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, you mentioned Zen obviously steps into left tackle, but how much, obviously you want to give Zen those reps in practice to get ready, but how much do you balance that with secondary options of either moving Donnie or Tegra over there?
Yeah, we will rotate guys too, but that's pretty normal anyways. We'll have, like, even an inside drill, we'll have 3 groups in there, and then even when we're going scouts or 1s versus 2s, you have the first group and then you have the second group. So those guys are all getting reps, but we will roll guys too.
Obviously, the offensive line had the illness that made you guys rotate more guys in fall camp. Did you feel like the way you were seeing that depth, has that progressed the way you thought it was since fall camp?
I think it did help us in a strange way. Yeah, I think guys got forced into it early in camp and had to respond, and I think it allowed them some confidence to know that they can step into that spot and play. So yeah, and now Zen's really got to take the next step. Now it's one thing to be in a situation where you're coming in to clean up a game or finish a game. I wouldn't say that was clean up a game, but that was to finish a game. Now he's got to go about being the starter, and I know he's excited about the opportunity. Deserves it.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
You said you hired Jim Knowles to be the head coach of the defense. In the non-huge games, defense has been great. In the big ones, it hasn't been. How much faith do you have that he's in him right now, and why?
Yeah, well, as I go in the meeting and I had hard conversations with everybody, and I know what the plan is moving forward, and I'm involved with that plan. So yeah, I got confidence in all those guys on that side of the ball, and I know what we need to get done, and we're going to get it done.
Completely unrelated. I watched the game again last night. Last play, it looked like Noah actually got down with 1 second to go, and Brandon was calling timeout right away. Do you have any thoughts on that? Did you send it to the Big Ten? Did you hear anything from them?
Yeah, we sent it in. They said that, there was no time left. Brandon was calling a timeout. I was right next to the referee calling a timeout. You can see it on the coach's copy. And they said time had run out.
All right, we'll wrap things up with Tim May. Let him in a row.
Thanks, Jerry. Nice Freudian. By the way, the crowd also had rushed the field, right? I mean, it was chaos down there. So,
yeah.
Will, what do you want Will to take away from those last 6 seconds? Because you were there as a quarterback a long time ago and stuff. I mean, there's so many things on your plate in that moment. What did you want him to take most away from that last play, so to speak?
Well, just, when you're in that spot, like you said, I haven't been in that situation before as a quarterback, but I've been in those types of situations. There's a lot going on. And, the good news is, we do have the communication, so we're able to give him some information in that moment. And, we tried to get a quick pass to Brandon, and someone flashed in his face, and he tried to, dart up. And, with 6 seconds left, you got to get down pretty quick. And so I think, if we could all do it all over again, he would have got down quicker, or we probably, would have called something maybe with a little bit more spacing to the field. You second guess all these calls when it doesn't work out. So when we're in that situation again, which we worked that same exact situation twice last week where, there was the same time on the clock and we had one timeout in the minus 25-yard line and we had to go kick a field goal. So we continued to work that. Not that we don't do that anyways, but we'll just continually, go through those situations so that when those situations come up, we're just ready to handle it better. But I would just say, obviously in that moment when you have that, we did save the timeout so that if he was to, get vertical and get down, we could call the timeout quickly. Tried to give him a quick pass and just layer it into the boundary.
Yeah. And these are 2 and 1, little bonus thing, but how much do you listen to outside noise? And do you ever get something from the outside noise? And have you in the last 2 weeks or week and a half gotten something from the outside noise? You know what I'm talking about? People like Austin was just talking about a minute ago that you go, yeah, you know what? Never thought of that. How often do you do that? And then number 2, when you go into a meeting room with like Jim knows, for example, the defense, are you going in there going, hey, I want to see this changed? Or is it always conversation?
A little bit of both there. Yeah. Coming off of something like that, there's both. And the other question was
outside noise.
Oh yeah, well,
experts in this room.
It's easy. It's easy for everyone to say, just ignore everything. Well, your players are reading it. Your players' parents are reading it. Recruits are reading it. So you got to be aware of what's going on out there. But at the end of the day, you have to focus on what's right, what your team's about, and that's really what comes down to. And I think it's important for our guys to understand that. But when you come to Ohio State, that comes to the territory. You know that, and a lot of people care, and I understand that. And it's my job as the head coach to make sure that when we get in that situation again, we win the game. So, trust me, nobody's working harder and nobody felt worse coming out of that game than I did. So I'm going to do everything I can to make sure it's right. Yeah.
Sure. First of all, always excited to have you guys here and join us each week. A little bit about, really excited about last week's outcome in terms of this team has continued to practice the right way. And every week we go out, I say that this team is a little different than any team I've coached, and I want to make sure I emphasize how proud I am about the way they've, the mindset of this team. I think they understand how important it is that we continue to stay focused on the process as well as the progress. And when you make small changes, they typically add up the big shifts, and I saw that, as I said Saturday, I saw our team grow up right before our eyes, and I saw the younger players, and I saw some of these guys that have had a tough go the last few weeks grow up, and that's what you want to see, incremental improvement every game. That's a little bit of part of the investment that I talked about a week ago, investing in the longer-term changes that will make us better, that with each player, each coach, every decision we make being focused in an effort to find ways to create success. And our players continue to do that each and every week, the way they practice, the way they come out, the way they They don't do it perfectly, which is why, that's our jobs as coaches and staff to continue to do it. Some of the things that I like to highlight, you look at Billy's play. I talked a couple weeks ago about Billy, and he's a big driver of all the things that you continue to see. He has an incredible mindset, great production when you look at him, and then the thing I think that really jumps out to me is the character. I mean, his leadership. This team believes in Billy as our quarterback. He's 10 in the country in passing yards. I think he's tied for first for the most completions. It was good to see Caden Prather have a big game for us on Saturday and really show up. And we've challenged Caden the last couple of weeks. He's put the work in on the practice fields, but challenged him to be dominant. And I thought he did a really good job of making some plays for us. And then when you talk about Octavian Smith and some of the plays he made, we've all seen what Ty has been capable of doing. But Saturday, I think you really saw KP and Ock prove once again that they're also playmakers for this offensive system. Excited about this opportunity against Minnesota on the road. As we know, it's always tough. As it's been highlighted, every week you see teams really struggle when they go on the road in the Big Ten because it's a tough league. But I expect us to continue to put the work in this week, show up Saturday, continue to do the things we need to do to improve against a good team. And I know it's their homecoming, so it'll be a great crowd, a great environment that I know our players will be excited about. I'll end by talking a little bit about, I know there have been a lot of people that ask about these hoodies and the throwbacks and the last few months. And, well, it's now time. It's time for us to release these, and Maryland Athletics and Under Armour in conjunction with the One Maryland Collective are going to release these throwback hoodies. Finally, it's great that the timing of it couldn't be at a better time. The gear is exclusive to the One Maryland Collective. People that join it will have an opportunity. I know it's limited. You have limited number of these things to be released, so I strongly encourage for everybody that's been sliding in my DMs asking about the throwback hoodies. Now is the time, as One Maryland Collective will now launch these as you become members. And I know they have a lot of different ways of whether it's the T-shirt with the throwback on it, whether it's the sweat hoodie, but they'll all be available for the fans that want to get in on this. So it's a great way for Maryland fans to own something that's unique, as well as help our program at the same time. And I know our players are excited about what the One Maryland Collective has been able to do, as we've been able, through the One Maryland Collective, from the football standpoint, to go out and really do some good things in the community on gun violence, education, mental health awareness, literacy, and then drug and alcohol prevention, which our football team, those are the 4 pillars that they have gone out around this community. And now, as a member of the One Maryland Collective, if you're fortunate enough to get on while supplies last, as they say. So jump on it early. Our captains for this week, Josh Kaltenberger, Tajay Johnson, and Roman Himby will serve as our game captains as we go up to Minneapolis this week. With that, I'll open up the questions.
Good afternoon, Mike.
Dave, are you guys closer to me than normal?
I think we shift around. It's like the San Andreas fault.
Right? Yeah,
yes.
you guys want to get in line for these sweatshirts, huh?
In theory. You guys lead the league, lead the Big Ten in passing yards per game. Minnesota's number 2 in the conference at stopping the pass. What have they done defensively this year that makes them special on D, and what are they going to cause for you guys?
Yeah, they're secondary. The 2 corners, and I know number 2 is a transfer in there, and really got good length, and kind of reminds me of a Deontay Banks type of skill set, man. They both really twitchy guys. Their scheme, they know who they want to be. They're going to be a under team, field under. They play man. They play middle field closed coverages, as well as some split safety coverages. Both those guys are really talented man-to-man cover guys, and when you watch them, they play man against all the teams, SC, North Carolina. So they're a team that wants to have a safety in the middle of the field. They're a team that will challenge you at the line of scrimmage because they're trying to take away the RPO stuff. Really sound on defense. I think they're top 10 defense, man, and they have been year in and year out, really consistent with their scheme. They're big up front. They got great length, athletic And like I said, their corners have the ability to kind of play man, which allows them to load that box up to stop the run.
And 7 games into the season, most teams have an identity. What do you feel this team's identity is, and how different is the identity from what you thought it might be back in August?
I mean, it's what I thought. So, I mean, our identity is we're a developmental team that will get better incrementally as the year goes on. When you're inexperienced up front, you know, I say young, but it's more inexperienced than young at the offensive line. I see us getting better. I see some of, like I said, the decisions that were made. I saw some incremental improvement with us being on the right people a week ago and running off the ball a little bit, which happens. It doesn't necessarily happen because of the change. It happens because we get to go out and do it every day, and you'll get better by doing it. I think we're still the same team that I thought we were. We have great skill players. We're a little inexperienced up front and inexperienced at the corner position. But as I said Saturday, I also saw those guys start growing up, and couldn't have happened at a better time for us. A much needed win for our program to give it that shock of confidence that to help us kind of get our confidence back.
Like, I know you've told us sometimes we have a tendency to make too much out of one game, but with that in mind, how much better does 4-3 look going into the second half of the season as opposed to 3-4?
I mean, obviously, it's definitely something that it's where we wanted to be, and so we accomplished our goal. We didn't get voted off the island this week, which is, transactional. College athletics, college football is a transactional deal where it's, what have you done for us lately? I like the way our team has continued to fight. It hasn't always been the results that we wanted, but as I've told them, we're going to try to stay process and progress oriented right now, and that's where we are. So if there's a change in anything, it's that let's stick to the process and the progress right now, and as we, get into the meat of our season.
You mentioned small changes. Are those adjustments schematic, personnel,
Everything.
mental? A combination.
Everything. Personnel, staff, play calling, everything. I mean, we all are. We always evaluating what we're doing and how to make it better. And the thing I told our team a week ago is that when you feel like things around you are all over the place, that's where you just kind of go and look into yourself and figure out what can I do to be better. And that's, to me, when I talk about the small changes, we're constantly, and when I talk about being a growth program, a growth mindset, we're constantly trying to figure out how can we get better faster. Because we don't have a lot of time. We know that. We got to get better fast. So the small changes, I thought we saw some incremental improvements in some of the things we made decisions on. And it's very atypical of how it happens.
Hey, Coach. Cam Edge transferred this week. I wanted to ask you kind of, from your perspective, working with the quarterback so closely and in the modern day of college football, how difficult is it to get a really good just backup quarterback that stays around? I mean, it seems like it's sparring every year, or sparse in every year.
It seems sparse here or all over the country? Oh, yeah. I mean, it's tough, but we've had a backup quarterback. Billy Edwards been here for year 3, and, it's just a matter of, and this is the great thing about what the new landscape looks like, because I have no problem with the decision that has been made. As you guys know, I don't talk about it a lot. When they leave, I let them leave how they feel they need to, and it should be that way, because, I mean, these guys are 18 to 22-year-olds that are trying to figure life out, and it's a lot like, going out and breaking plates in practice where things don't happen the way you want them to happen, and, sometimes you fight through it and you keep persevering, and sometimes you reset and figure out that maybe this ain't the place, and that happens, whether it's coaches, players, staff. When you're a program like ours where we're constantly in the growth mindset deal, everybody's looking for how can I create value, not just for the team, but for myself. And so some of the decisions are made, but it's the landscape, so got no problem with that.
And then can you just explain what a backup quarterback's role is, whether it's through the week, on game day? What do you, especially now with guys cycling in at multiple schools, what does it look like on a
kind of looks like basis? What a student reporter looks like with a professional reporter. No, I'm not, man. You're learning. You're here learning, and you got guys behind you that have been doing it a while. And it's very similar. You wait your turn, you get better at it, you write your stories, you prepare yourself as if you're working for the job you want, which you do a great job of. And, that's what a backup quarterback does. He prepares for the opportunity that isn't guaranteed, that you aren't guaranteed to get. And that's not always how this generation, that's why I said the landscape of college athletics is different, because they do have this ability, and I'm all for it, because again, I'm of the opinion that if a guy doesn't feel like this place is the best place for him, go find that place that fits what you're looking for. And you know what, sometimes you make mistakes, sometimes guys decide after a while, like, hey, and so it's a good thing, and it's one that I have no problem with.
As Gene mentioned, that you're 4-3 instead of 3-4. How important is it to maintain that momentum before you head into the second bye, and particularly the November stretch?
I ain't worried about all that. I'm worried about this next game. So as far as the stretch, the all that, this next one is the most important, and it's kind of been how we've approached it. The progress, that we need to make is, let's build on some of the things we did well. I think I talked to you guys about wisdom a week ago. That's the negative and positive experience you have that allow you to make good choices now. And so the wisdom that we've gained from the first half of the season, it's up to me to make sure that we take those things that we've learned, apply them to help us find a way to go up to Minneapolis and get a win. All the rest of that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters to us right now is what happens when we go to Minnesota.
Hey, Coach. I talked
to Ryan Davis a couple of weeks ago, and
to who?
Ryan Davis.
Okay.
And he kind of mentioned me the importance of the system you have in place, where it's kind of a marriage between strength and conditioning and also the on-the-field work, something that he hasn't necessarily. It hasn't been the case for him for his previous stops. Why do you feel it's so important to kind of have that marriage where whatever you're doing on the field, it's matched with how you're keeping the guys conditioning-wise and strength-wise?
I mean, it's, again, the philosophy of our program. I mean, speed is important, size is important, and then we have criteria that we look for each position. And when we bring guys in, I've said this before, this generation is not a mass production. It's like these new sweatshirts that the One Maryland Collective is going to be putting out. They don't want 1,000 of, they want to be able to, we're only releasing 300 or 500, so everybody wants one of one, and I think the same thing can be said for when you bring players in, especially in this landscape. That marriage between the strength and conditioning room and the value it creates for them on the field, that marriage is natural, because if they're getting bigger, stronger, faster in the weight room, that usually translates to them making plays on the field, which usually creates value, whether it's them being able to be a starter, earn NIL dollars, or whether it's them being able to get drafted like we've had a bunch of guys do here the last few years. And that marriage is one that has to happen. It's important because we complement each other in terms of, we bring in the skill, he develops them. A lot of times the players we bring in are developmental guys that aren't the finished product just yet, but I think if you look at the way we've recruited, now that we've started to have a little success in our program, we've gotten some guys that maybe didn't look at Maryland the way they look at us now, and it's helped us, and it will help us as we continue to develop and grow our program.
Hey, Coach, how's it going?
What's up?
Can you talk a little bit more about Octavian's development?
Talk a little bit more about these throwback sweatshirts the One Maryland Collective is going to put out today? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, a little bit more about Octavian's development that's kind of led him to being the number 3 receiver in this offense.
I mean, Octavian is a guy that, he played quarterback in high school up at Paint Branch for Coach Neesmith, and Coach Neesmith is one of those high school coaches that I can just remember, like when I was a coordinator here, he was always around, always studying the game. And so when you look at the way the Paint Branch program has grown there in Montgomery County, and Octavian played a big role in that, as a quarterback in that system. He has great speed. He's been making plays like he made Saturday. I can think back to the NC State Bowl game. That touchdown catch Saturday was eerily similar to that, and it's what he's capable of. And I've said this before, Oc's been banged up a little bit. When you have a speed guy like him, and he's been dealing with a lower body extremity, that he's finally healthy, and we're finally starting to get him back to where he's close to 100%. And it couldn't have happened at a better time for us because, KP and Ty get a lot of attention, and when you have that guy that's in the slot, somebody's going to get a one-on-one. And to have that third guy, as well as those young tight ends as they continue to develop, being able to have Ox production, especially the way he was productive for us a week ago. We're going to need that out of him this week, and he's had a good week of practice. He's been one of those guys that, as I talk about the transition from like how Ty made that transition this year, I'm starting to see that out of Octavian in terms of how he's practicing, in terms of his development. You see him crafting and learning and really getting into crafting as a receiver, and it's starting to show up on Saturday for him.
And in August, you said he had some issues in the summer, maybe he was behind the 8 ball. What has he done to kind of correct that and kind of earn his spot that he's in now?
He's changed his habits. He's created the winning habits that you need to have to make plays like he did Saturday. And it's just part of growing up, man. I keep talking about it, and I think you guys don't understand that you have to grow up. Like, they come in as 18-year-olds. I mean, you were 18 before, right? How old are you now? 21. So, I mean, you're not the same guy you were at 21 as you were at 18 when you showed up here. And sometimes we don't always give players that grace because there is an expectation now, and I get it, but it's my job as a parent and as their coach to protect them and allow them to grow at the pace they need to while still trying to figure out ways to speed it up. And I think Aka's a byproduct of it, Ty's a byproduct of it, Glenn Miller's a byproduct of it. It's just the way this program is set up that you'll see players continue to develop and grow and improve, which is what it's all about for me.
Coach, so I'm watching the game up here, and it's 28-14, and we're driving.
You didn't leave?
And, well, we were losing, and I said to myself, I know Lox is going to go for it, go for 2. What went into that decision, and was it just something you had said, I'm going to do this no matter what, because you said you wanted to take the day and try and take the win, and that, without question, that led to the victory.
No, I phoned a friend. I got online and called a friend, and I got online. He looked on the comments during the game and saw, like, Lox needs to go for 2 here. So that's why it took me a little while when they were reviewing it, and when I got the call back to say go for 2.
Votes might have been against you, though. In other words,
I'm just saying, I phoned a friend. No, I mean, we study it. I know that a lot of people think we don't know what we're doing as coaches a lot, but we rehearse everything. Just like you rehearse your questions and you rehearse your stories and you write them down and you make corrections in between before you get it to your editor. I mean, we do those things too. Unfortunately, every decision we make, you guys get to judge, and I'd like to, get to judge some of y'all's first writings that you write when you do your first story before your editor slices it up. You know what I mean? Let's put that on there. So we use the analytics of it. You're down 2 points, it tells you coach's decision, or when you're down 2 scores late in the game, you're going to have to go for 8, or at some point, if you want to win the game, you're going to have to go for 2, or you go to overtime. Well, I had made the decision that we were playing to win. I told our team, that's why we went for it on 4th and 3. I think Sam asked me, didn't you ask me that question about 4th and 3? Somebody did Saturday, but that's an example of messaging to your team, this is how we're going about it. We're going to play to win. We went for 2, had a great call, great successful scheme, got the 2 points, and it made it a little easier. So now you score the next touchdown, you win the game. If you didn't get it, you still had an opportunity to tie the game for going for 2 after the second score. So it's not a lot. It wasn't that hard of a decision because we rehearse it, we use the analytics. But I will also tell you that, when the map and the terrain don't match, we're going with the what? The terrain. And so in the course of that game, we could have kicked it, tied it up, and went in overtime possibly. But at that point, for me to send a message to our team that may, reverberate across the rest of the season, I think it showed that we were playing to win. Thanks.
Well, bye week is done. Practiced yesterday. Had a good practice, full padded deal for Indiana. And had a lot of recruiting this past weekend. All of our coaches were out. I got to, 7 high schools, 6 high schools, and all of our staff did the same. So we were able to, cover about 75 high schools this past 3 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then came back and Sunday got after it with our guys. Players got a lift in, and then today was player day off. And then we are back tomorrow for a normal, what we would call a normal Wednesday, even though it's Tuesday, and then a normal Thursday on Wednesday, and then fly out Thursday morning for college game day in Indiana, and a great challenge.
Talked about wanting to do some deep dives into a few things during the bye. Anything revealed of significance in the last week or so?
Yeah, I think we were able to kind of quantify and look at some of the series of that kept us from scoring in certain spots down in the red area, or even getting close in there, some of the penalties that occurred, or some of the, maybe misassignments, or some of the things that we would call differently. I think we looked at the end of the half stuff on defense and looked at some of the run game over the last couple games, and just really looked at almost everything. I mean, I watched obviously all of our games. Our staff looked at all the games. It comes at a great time, the 6 game or 7 games in. And we also realized that one of the biggest things we looked at is consistency. Like, how do you have, some really good drives in a row, or how do you get a couple 3 and outs in a row, and then where is that breakdown? And we're working real hard to really focus with our team about what does 60 minutes of football look like rather than 47 minutes of football. And, unfortunately, those 13 minutes come at different times. They don't just come at one spot. And, not a lot of personnel changes. We are where we are right now in terms of who's starting, who's backing up. We do feel good about having Durfee back. We do feel like he's certainly an impact player when he's played. And we think that we are continuing to see, we'll look at more Jonah. I think Jonah needed these couple weeks, but he has not practiced really, except for yesterday a little bit. So we needed to rest him up, and feels like he's pretty close to being back. So one of the things we noticed was when he's in the game, there's a pretty big impact.
What did you notice with respect to the run game, where you guys are getting over 100 yards per game, but you're not necessarily getting the touchdowns? What are you seeing that maybe is the gap between those two?
Yeah, I think what it came down to, or comes down to, is getting into a bad D&D. A lot of times with our run game, we were able to stay on top of the chains, ahead of the chains. It's kind of our MO. And then we were getting down inside we've had, 27 or 28 red zone drives, and 6 of them has had penalties that has put us in a 2nd and 10 plus or 2nd and 9 plus. And we've had 4 snap issues. So you're looking at, of those plays, I think 9 of the 28, series has had a true self-inflicted negative play. And that's what we're really working on, and on trying to know that no one's perfect, right? Everyone commits a penalty or has a mistake, but ours are just happening at a too frequent nature, especially a couple of the games early on. I think we've settled down penalty-wise after the explosive start.
Indiana has a quarterback, or had a quarterback that was being mentioned for the Heisman, off to a really good start, and now it looks like he's going to miss your football game. Do you see them having to make many changes? I know the guy played well last weekend, but are they a different football team?
Yeah, I don't know. It looks like, I saw the guy that went in, Taven that went in, was 8 for 9, threw 2 touchdown passes. So if I was going off of that small sample, I would say it doesn't look like he had to do too much different. I would guess they'll make some adjustments. He did play last year. And then Rourke came in, and I think Rourke and Will Rogers almost had identical numbers at this point in time of the season. And then obviously it's unfortunate when anybody gets hurt, and it didn't look good when I saw it. So it didn't surprise me that he wasn't able to play in our game. And then throwing thumb is a tough one. So we're going to have to see what they're going to do on offense. They probably will have some change. But they certainly didn't have to make any big changes in that game, and they were able to continue running the offense that they have done extremely well with.
You've got, obviously, new coaching staff, 30-some transfers. When you watch them, what's worked for them to have been so dominant and be 7-0?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference, he got hired November 30th, I believe. So the transfer portal that he was at, the guys that he brought in primarily were there all spring. That's number one. He brought in 13 players from JMU, 13 starters. I think he did a really, really, really good job of bringing in productive players. I think his quote was that he was really looking for production over potential when he was building that roster up. And that December, January, I mean, that's the portal that you want to build your team off of, is that winter portal. And if you're going to go build it in the portal, and I thought they did a great job with that. They found a great quarterback and did a great job. They have a really good scheme. He has a staff that's been together. Defensive coordinator's been with him for 14 years. Offensive coordinator's been with him when he was at JMU. And the guys they brought with them, they were able to, they went from JMU to Indiana. Most people are going to want to make that jump. And so they were able to get really everybody he wanted to bring, he brought. And I think you could see how that's paying dividends for him.
Coach Sinceri's brother's quarterback coach and offensive coordinator. Does that help with any insight or not really?
Yeah, I think Mike Shanahan calls the plays over there. He's the, Coach Sinceri, I think, is the pass game coordinator, co-offensive coordinator over there. And Coach Shanahan, I think, is the receiver coach and is calling the plays. And it doesn't bring any extra insight, no. I think it would work for both sides then. So it would be one of which that we know we got a good team that we got to play. They're playing fantastic football. They're scoring a ton of points. They're certainly in that conversation of being one of the best teams in the country right now. So just going ahead and beating Nebraska 52-7 or whatever, 56-7, whatever it was. I mean, that's a monster win. So they know how to score points. That's for sure.
When both players are healthy, are you better off with McCree or Swanee at right tackle?
Well, I think unfortunately that's not the case. So we don't have both players healthy right now. So we're not in a spot where that would just be. I'd be guessing right now. Neither one have been healthy at the same time. So right now we're Swanee and Kali. Max, I don't believe will be able to play. So we're using those two guys at left tackle and then mixing Drew in there as well.
You mentioned the transfer portal window. What are your thoughts on the NCAA changing kind of rather roughly that spring window just to, I think, 7 or 10 days? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, they just went from 45 to 30, so they went 20 and 10 rather than 30 and 15. Again, I think that, the winter portal is the portal where you see most of the change, right? The spring portal is some disgruntled guys after spring ball's over, or maybe they wanted to give a new coaching staff a chance, and then they decided they wanted to go into the portal. In the spring, rarely are you getting a lot of guys that are going to be starting for you. Our case was a little bit different because of the fact there was no winter portal. But I think it's fine, whatever the NCAA decides regarding that, and I don't know if that's going to get evaluated every year. Are they going to look to see, is it going to be one portal or two portals? Ideally, as coaches, we always would like to know who our team is in January. And then next January, reevaluate it. It's a lot more challenging when you have a whole spring and then you have to restart, except in our case last year when we didn't get here till the middle of January. I think in a normal situation, you look at Mike Elko's situation, right? He got hired December 1st. You look at Signetti, December 1st. You look at Kalen, myself, we were January 15th, right? So it's just different, or 18th, whatever it was. So it's just that you want that whole year. You want that year to be able to see. But if you eliminate the spring portal, then where would guys, like our situation, what would happen? And I think that's what they have to figure out before they make those big decisions.
You took Jordan Shaw out of the portal. Did you take that based on his Indiana experience, or did you know him as a high school recruit, or both?
Yeah, I knew him as a high school kid. We took him at Arizona and then brought him here. But we knew him as a high school player. We really liked him as a high school player. We got on him a little bit late just because, again, that was one of those. We were just kind of transitioning into being able to have an impact in Southern California. That was after our first year at Arizona. And we tried to get him at the last second to come over to us, but we really didn't have much of a relationship at that time. We just really kind of went on overdrive the last couple weeks of recruiting when we were trying to build a roster. So when he became available after a year, we were very familiar with him, and we were excited about the opportunity to get him there. And then obviously when we all came here, we were excited about him wanting to join us here.
You mentioned Max and Swanee and Jonah and Durf. Any other health updates that we need to know about?
No, I think we're as we played last game. Everybody that played last game will play this game. People that sat out last game will probably sit out this game, except for Durfee. So Kevin Green not be able to play. Quentin Moore not be able to play. I believe everybody else is that I can think of right now is playing.
What's Carson Bruner done managing that shoulder? It seems like at times he's looked like he's in a lot of pain, but maybe not the last game or so.
Yeah, I think it's gotten better. It's an AC sprain, so it kind of, we try to protect him during the week of practice, and the more you can protect him in that week of practice, the game becomes, it's a physical game, obviously. So there's some hits that your shoulder takes in the game, but when you don't have to take it all week long, and the game kind of has protected his shoulder, and I could see he's getting to the point now that the shoulder doesn't seem to be impacting anything he's doing. This week was obviously good for him. We didn't put him in a contact jersey all week, so he had like a 7-day rest, let's call it, from Iowa. Physically, he obviously was lifting and running and practicing, but just protected, so we didn't have to have the contact, which allows him to. He told me yesterday he feels the best he's felt since the injury.
Where's Grady mentally, kind of?
Man, he kicked it great yesterday. It was we had some running. I said, all right, Grady, we're either going to run 4 gassers or we're going to run 0, depending if you make this kick. And we put the ball down on the 48-yard line or a 48-yard field goal and had the whole team surround him. And I said it's either going to be whatever that would end up being, 400 yards of running for the players or 0. And he nailed it right through the uprights. So the team was very excited that we didn't have to run to end practice. And I think he felt good about nailing that kick.
That was at the end of practice?
Yeah, that's how we ended practice yesterday.
How's kind of just been the response for the team coming off that Iowa game into the bye week? Have you seen them kind of mentally respond?
Yeah, we're fully focused on playing one of the best teams in the country, and we never. I don't really necessarily believe in like flushing a game and pretending it didn't exist. Where some people would say, "Hey, just put it behind you and go." We had a lot of corrections we had to make, and we had the first 2 days of the bye week to make those corrections. Come the third day of the bye week, our third practice, we started making it all about Indiana. And then when we came back yesterday, we didn't talk about the corrections. We just hopefully practiced better, which we did. And we're continuing to get better fundamentally. Young guys in a lot of spots, veteran guys in some spots. Everybody needs to be better. But as we're building it and we're going through this process of understanding how to handle big wins against Michigan, tough losses against Iowa, how is that team going to be able to respond in the future is really the key.
Generally, how do you feel about the special teams after a week of changing some things? I know you mentioned that going into the bye week, you didn't want to change things drastically because you talked to the specialists.
Yeah, we need to be better in special teams. That's obviously something that was a focus with Coach Powell and Coach McElwain, myself. We talked a lot about all areas: kickoff coverage, punt block, field goal block, all areas. And we're going to continue to try to get better there. And we're going to continue to do everything we can to improve. But it really is all 11. And it's unfortunate sometimes that it always looks like it's the kicker or the punter. And you sometimes lose track of, if a guy steps the wrong way and there's a guy running through the A-gap, that has nothing to do with the kicker, but yet we all see the kick blocked. Or if you feel extra pressure that you're, too much penetration and you wind up hooking a shot, or hooking a kick, it all looks like it's always on Grady, and that's tough. So I think that Grady knows he's got a responsibility to kick it through the uprights, and he's doing a really good job of focusing in on that. Our offensive line or any of our guys involved in field goal understand their responsibility in this, and we all needed to get better in special teams, and it is my hope that we come out against Indiana and have our best special teams game.
both Indiana and Washington obviously got the Michael Penix experience. Have you guys seen any kind of benefits of him in terms of recruiting or just, everything he did in this program?
It was nice to have him out at the Michigan game. I think that's exciting. I think you always have a benefit when you have players playing in the NFL, right? Because you get the introductions, you get them talking about it, you get the idea of, Rome catches a touchdown pass and it's University of Washington wide receiver Rome Odunze. You get opportunities there when guys make plays. Trent McDuffie makes a play. It's University of Washington corner Trent McDuffie. So however that works, right, you always get those opportunities. I think that's super cool. So that's the benefit, right? They don't usually talk about the first school you started at. They talk about the last school you went to. And that's just kind of the way life is. And so we're very fortunate that there are so many players in the league right now. Obviously, there's, 13 from last year's team that are in the NFL right now out of 22 starters. So it's a pretty amazing team. And it's pretty cool to be able to follow those guys and root them on.
Isaiah Ward and Durfee were the starting edge rushers in the first 2 games, and then we know what happened to Durfee. He got banged up. Ward's job kind of changed, too. He's come off the bench instead of been out there on the opening series in the last, 5 games. Has he been banged up, or is it just scheme?
No, that's been more based on the type of teams we're playing. We've been playing a heavy run group of offenses. When you look at really from Northwestern game on, Northwestern, Michigan, Rutgers, all those teams have been very much heavy run based. And Isaiah Ward's greatest trait is his ability to rush the passer. So I think he got the last sack in the game against Michigan, right in the 2-minute drive when they were down 10. But we just need to figure out, this is a big game for Isaiah Ward. This team knows how to run and pass really, really well. So this is a great opportunity for a guy like Ward, obviously Durfee, Jacob Lane, Holtzclaw, the whole group to be able to show up. And we're going to need everybody in a game like this against the #1 offense in the Big Ten and I think top 5 offense in the country.
It seems like teams have not been super eager to run the ball against Indiana. Obviously, part of that is game state. But have you guys seen any opportunity there, especially with Jonah getting a little bit healthier through the league?
I think the biggest thing against Indiana has been they've never trailed. So they're playing with a lead every single game. And when you play with a lead, there's that, play caller anxiety that when as an offensive play caller, that you're sitting there, if you always feel like you're behind, you have more of a tendency to want to call a pass, or if it's an either or in your brain, you lean pass. And I think that's what's been going on with Indiana. And they've been getting up on Team 7, 14-0, quickly. I think Maryland did a good job of balancing them both. And there was 28-all going into the fourth quarter. Northwestern, they had a situation where it was 14-10 at halftime or something to that effect. And then all of a sudden it's 21-10 and the run game slows down a little bit. So, yeah, the key is for us to be able to run the ball. We have to be able to run the ball. That's how we're building this team. That's how we're building Washington football for the years to come. Good run game, great defense, take shots down the field on offense, and be explosive and get wide receivers touchdowns. That's what we believe in. That's who we are. So we need to run the football if we're going to be successful.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thanks, Matt. Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see everybody. So obviously, this past weekend was disappointing. Tough game and tough on everybody, players, staff, and certainly our fans. So bottom line is Michigan State played really well and certainly deserved the win. And, I think we had a solid plan, but just, didn't do basically anything well enough to expect to win a game like that. Probably the only positive I saw mentioned the other night was just kick return. But outside of that, we really didn't have anything that stood out. So it was tough on Sunday to look at the tape. Always is after a loss. It was difficult, but, just in a quick synopsis, a couple things that stood out offensively. Third down, in the first half, we're 0 for 5. So really couldn't sustain any drives. And I think the bigger picture there, we had a couple negative yardage plays, something we really haven't been afflicted by very frequently prior to that game. And I had a few of those. And then also just, some makeable plays, whether it's third down or any down. When you miss the makeables, it's really hard to weigh how much that impacts the flow of a team offensively. So those are things you just can't do. We got to do a better job there. And defensively, it's just a tough game overall. They did a great job. Michigan State, I thought, really executed well. The quarterback played well. He had been turning it over. That's 2 straight games now. He's done a much better job, and it makes a difference certainly for them. And but I think our biggest issue, we just didn't tackle well. And it's going to be hard to play good defense if we don't tackle better. So, I think we tried to give ourselves a chance in the second half, but it's tough playing from behind like that, and they did a good job responding to whatever we came up with. So, that was Sunday. Turned the page Sunday evening and got working on Northwestern, and we'll transition into this ball game. Captains are the same 4 guys. You got Jay Higgins and Quinn Schulte defensively, Luke Lachey and Cade McNamara offensively, and injury-wise, really nothing to report. Addison's going to be out for a while, Stranga, and then Bo will not make it this week. So we'll see what next week brings, but he definitely won't play this week. So, look at Northwestern, kind of typical, repeat comments, with them. They're tough, they're well coached. It really hasn't changed over the years. And if you look at it, a year ago, they went through a transition in the summertime. Thought Coach Braun did an unbelievable job with their team throughout the year. And, we had a really tough ball game, as you remember, with them. It was a really hard-fought game, both teams. And after our game, they won 3 straight and then won their bowl game in Las Vegas against Utah, who's had a lot of success over the years. So I think that speaks to their program. Coach Braun made a few adjustments during the out-of-season, a couple new coaches that, he got to pick. And so I think he's probably got things where he's wanted, and I think it shows up with their football team. Big picture-wise, it's interesting. You look back, the last 8 contests were 4-4 with them, and that kind of sums up this series. It's been back and forth, and they're a team where they make you earn everything. They compete hard. They've got good players, so that's kind of what we're looking at. And if I was going to highlight one game this year, you look at the Indiana ball game. In Indiana, I think all of us know, has a really good football team. They're playing great football. 6 minutes left, it's a 3-point game. They're going back and forth. Indiana would score, Northwestern would answer. So, I think it's just kind of represented their football team. That's, the score ended up getting away a little bit the last 5 minutes. But for the first 55, that was a really good contest, and I think that's kind of what we're trying to get ready for here. So a couple words about our kid captain. We've got Adeline Lovell from Clear Lake will be with us. She's a 6-year-old. And a couple years ago, she was diagnosed with a very aggressive form of leukemia. And it got a little bit complicated when she came down. She had a severe reaction to the chemo. So they had to devise another plan, new strategy across the street. And after 2 weeks of treatment, they got things under control a little bit. And she's done very, very well. So happy to say that. I guess her dad was inspired and became a marathon runner. Ran a marathon up in Chicago, coincidentally. And they're doing fundraising at the dance marathon, et cetera. So really, really good there. But she'll finish up treatment next month. So that's positive news. And she's participated in the Wave from Above, and she'll be in Kinnick this week. So really glad to have her with us, and happy to have her join us, and that'll be good. So just closing up, team, 2 messages basically. We're, move on. We got to move on. And that started yesterday morning. And then secondly, it's got to be about improvement, and that's each and every week. You got to try to do a better job, and we certainly had some things off the tape that we've got to work on. So that's kind of where we're at right now, and I'll throw it out for questions.
Adam Jacoby, Hawkeye Beacon. You've said, not only throughout the season but throughout your career, that practice determines playing time and how you evaluate these guys. What have you been seeing from Cade McNamara in practice that maybe you aren't seeing from Brendan Sullivan yet? Where is the opportunity for growth for Sullivan as you evaluate that position week to week?
Yeah, I think they're both doing a good job in practice, and game competition factors in there really less severely. The guys that are playing, obviously, you have concrete examples, and then guys that aren't out there, you're projecting a little bit, and it's part of the deal. So there's never a 100% answer, typically at least, but I think they're both doing a good job, and Cade has to play better. Certainly the first half, in particular, really nothing on offense was good enough for us to be we dug a hole that was too deep, quite frankly, and everybody had a hand in it. But offense certainly has responsibility. Cade's going to have to throw the ball a little bit more accurately. And I mentioned about the makeables, whether it's him or anybody else, if he's got a chance to give us better production, that's what we need. So, we'll just keep pushing forward here and see what happens.
Hey, Kirk, Elliott Clough, Hawkeye Beacon. I know you mentioned the message to the team being move on. I guess with lofty goals going into the season, right? College football playoff, Big Ten championship. Is that difficult to keep the team moving forward? And I guess how do you keep it from going, sideways and maybe losing a few games as the season continues?
Yeah, it depends on the team, and every week's a new game. The college playoffs, I know those changed this year, and that opened up a new opportunity beyond what we've had in the past, certainly. But, college football really hasn't changed. I think, I would imagine every team goes in the same way, hoping to win every game. Indiana, I'm guessing, had that goal, and so far they're doing really well with it. So those are the things you find out during the course of the season. And that's twofold, really. How do your opponents measure up? And a lot more about that after a game than you do in August, July, June. So you're preparing for the whole year, but bigger picture, you're trying to prepare to do your best. And, it's a week-by-week assessment. So, clearly we didn't, we weren't in a place Saturday where we need to be if we're going to, start by winning just a game and then, beyond that. And it's really the same thing this week. We're playing a team that we've got a lot of respect for, and they've proven they're certainly capable. Really good win a couple weeks ago at Maryland. And Maryland just had a big win. So, it's week to week, and you just really have to stay focused on that. And the teams that do that the best probably are the teams that are going to be most successful.
Hi, Kirk. John
Hey,
Steffi,
John.
Cedar Rapids Gazette. First of all, from an injury standpoint, following up, Castro and Cohen, you sounded optimistic about them on Saturday. Are they still on a good path for Saturday?
They both practiced today, so I anticipate they're going to be okay. And Cohen's, we dodged a bullet there. I don't know if you're allowed to say that, but we did. That looked like it might be a little bit more serious on Saturday, but fortunately, he'll be fine.
And then you were mentioning the issues of tackling. We usually aren't talking about that with this defense.
Yep.
Kind of what do you attribute that to, and do you see this as kind of a fixable problem for the next 5 games and for this week?
Yeah, I used the term uncharacteristic on Saturday, and time will tell on that one, right? So if we get it straightened out and improve and do things that we've been doing well, if we can get back on that plane, then it is uncharacteristic. Could be the start of a trend, hopefully not. And it's like turnovers, in the past, talked about turnovers a little bit. We don't have a specific turnover drill. It'd be great if you could hit one, but, you do things that are based on the fundamentals. You practice fundamentals, certainly, and tackling's the same way. We probably tackle less, I'm talking about over the years, live tackling than anybody in college football, I would guess. I don't know what everybody else does, but we've done very little of it in the last 20-plus years. Yet we practice it, in drills and those types of things, and we've been pretty successful. But every game's a new opportunity, and we just weren't there. And it was, I don't know what happened, but it was a collective. Wasn't just like one position or one guy. It was just kind of a collective deal the other night.
Jedd Lace, Des Moines Register. Before I ask, it sounded like Cade's your starter for Saturday, correct?
Yep,
Okay.
Correct. As of right now, yep.
Okay. Yeah. So you said they're both practicing well. Is there something specifically about, and the game results do matter to you at that position, but obviously Brendan hasn't gotten anything beyond the goal line stuff. What specifically about that Brendan is maybe holding you back from giving him that opportunity to have even just an extended look in a game?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing is it's easier to talk about putting somebody in a game than just doing it, especially at that position. We've seen enough, I think, good things out of Cade to feel like he gives us our best chance out there. So that's really, it's like any position. Although this is obviously there's more eyes on this position, but I think he's done enough good things where we have confidence that he'll play well Saturday, and but we'll also keep an open mind. You have to, and we can't. We have to do better than we did the first 30 minutes the other night. We can't wait till the second half to start going here. So. Yeah, we'll keep an open mind, but I have confidence in both of them, quite frankly. And when Brendan gets an expanded role, or if he gets an expanded role, I think he'll do well.
David Eichel, HawkeyeInsider.com. Kirk, maybe this is kind of an odd question, but is it a skill for a player to be brutally honest when they evaluate themselves on tape? And is that a culture thing, or is that just maybe a maturity factor? I'm just kind of curious from your perspective what that process is kind of like.
I think it's a life thing. I think all of us, we walk around thinking we don't have much to learn, then that's, it's probably you can probably leave a lot out there that maybe you could have enjoyed, or things you could have learned from. So, but the one nice thing about football, nice or not so nice, but the films are, really they are reality. And you've heard that's so cliche, but it's so true. When you watch the most powerful teaching aid that all of us have in the meeting rooms is film. Because after practice, when you watch practice film, you know what happened, you see what happened. And it's interesting, we were having a conversation, one of the coaches and I the other day, 2 days ago, just about having the, iPads, or, what they have a different name for them, right? What do they call them? Tablets. I don't know how they got tablets out of an iPad, but anyway, but having those on the sideline, like, sense of reality is a little different during game time now, because it used to be like, on Saturday, player says one thing, and then Sunday it's like, whoa, hold it, take a look here. So that's one nice thing about it, but I think that's one difference about football, or one thing unique about football. You can't really debate what you see on the tape. And it's not like instant replay. It lasts 8 minutes. It's usually, okay, there it is. Here's what we got to do to correct it. And so the real trick is doing the work. But to improve, you've got to be humble enough to say, I've got some work to do. And one thing about football, and it's kind of like life, but football especially, you get humbled. And if you're not up to par, chances are you'll get humbled immediately. Sometimes you get away with it, but not too often.
Kirk, Tom Kakert, Hawkeye Reports. With the offensive line, you've talked a lot about couldn't microwave the experience. Yep. Are we seeing some of that with the cornerback position opposite Jamari, that those guys are just kind of, they're struggling right now? What do you see from those guys and trying to microwave some of that experience right now?
Yeah, it's hard. You can't give players the experience or hand it to them, I should say. Sometimes you have to go out and, go through the highs and lows, and that's part of it. And we have gone through it at the line. We're not out of the woods yet there, but going back to the previous point, the game is always humbling, because there's always somebody out there that's going to challenge you, and you run into people that do better than you too. So it's you're trying to gain ground on that, and that's I think probably with outside Jamari's played a lot for us, but we got some guys that are still learning on the job, and you just keep competing. You watch the tape, and then you try to improve, and then carry that out to the game film on Saturday. But a lot of it, just technique, a little smarter positioning, or just seeing a situation a little bit differently maybe than you had on the field.
Ethan Peter, Quad City Times. You guys had an interception from Cohen, didn't get any points out of it. That's kind of been a trend for this team this year. Offense is below average in scoring off of turnovers than the rest of the Big Ten. Is there a challenge to scoring in that kind of quick change situation? And what does the offense need to do to get more off of the defense's turnovers?
Yeah, I don't think there's any necessarily psychology to it at all. You'd certainly like to convert any good break, whether it's turnovers, good kick return, punt return, those types of things. You want to take advantage of good momentum, certainly. And but anytime you get the ball, unless you're just trying to burn clock or what have you, finish a half out, or you're trying to move it and score, and preferably touchdowns. So no, there's no psychology to it, and we just got to try to do a little better job on it.
Tyler Tashman with the Des Moines Register. I just want to clarify with Deshaun, there's no injury with him. That was a coach's decision on Saturday for him not to play.
Right. I'm sorry. Yep.
Okay. And then just about Jamari, the way he's playing, just what's the biggest areas of growth you've seen from the past few years since he got here and to the way he's playing now?
Yeah, he's I remember sitting right about here, somewhere in here with him and his mom and his grandfather when they came in for a visit. He was a guy we offered late, like a lot of our guys that have played well. And she had just had a root canal, so he had to drive. Their grandfather drove, and she was not in the best of condition, quite frankly. But anyway, but yeah, he was a young guy from Montini Catholic that we kind of liked, obviously more than kind of liked, and just took a while for us to want to get to know him a little bit better. And he's done nothing but work hard and improve since he's gotten here, and he's a tremendous young person on top of it, so, but, little things you saw with him, he had a commute to get to school, it wasn't easy for him, and it tells you a little something about his personality. I think that, he had perseverance, and it was serious to him. He recognized a good opportunity, so he, sacrificed a little bit to make it happen, and, but he's worked hard. He's a really thoughtful young guy. He's got a lot going on that way, and that's a good thing. But that's part because he's older too and sees a little bigger picture than he did 4 years ago. But he's been a good leader for us, and he's playing well for us out there.
Owen Sebring with KGAN. I noticed at fullback we've got Rusty listed as a starter this week. I didn't know if Hayden's getting moved over to more tight end reps with Addison out, or what's going on with Hayden. I was also curious to hear a little bit more about Deshaun Lee, if that is I don't know if there was an injury thing on Saturday, there was not a lot seen of him on the field, so I didn't know if it was disciplinary, something like that.
No, nothing disciplinary at all. It's, Phil, the position coaches typically decide on rotations and who's going to go in, and a lot of that just is based on the feel of how the game's going. But, Deshaun's in good standing. He's doing a great job. Good young guy. And, he's a little bit of a wall, so he's got to work through that. We're going to need everybody. I know that. That's for sure. So he's doing well. As far as Hayden goes, Hayden's coming off that ankle from 2 weeks ago. He seemed to be fine. He was sore Sunday, a little bit sore yesterday, but he's fine today. So Addison's out, obviously, but the rotation, Hayden's still involved. Orth moves up to basically kind of take Addison's place in terms of what he was doing. And then John Pascuzzi also is involved. And then you got Rusty and Hayden, that H-back second tight end, or whatever you want to look at it. It's kind of, some of the stuff kind of blends together. And then obviously we'll probably do things a little different with Rusty and there, or Eli, as opposed to maybe one of the tight ends.
Adam Jacoby, Hawkeye Beacon. It looks, with the struggles that the secondary's been having, it looks like a lot of teams have been attacking the outside, that sort of intermediate, deep, basically where the cornerback is handing off to safety a lot. Does that come down to execution? Does that seem like other offenses are learning how to attack this defense schematically, or how do you look at a secondary that's now 83rd in the nation in pass yards allowed per game?
Yeah, I didn't know that stat either, so hey, that's not good news. I kind of look at the thing more collectively, but clearly, the other night it wasn't a good night, 400 plus yards, and but again, when you aren't playing fundamentally sound, and part of what you're alluding to is just it's physical, but also communication sometimes, and everybody being on the same page, and that's what defense is all about. All 11 guys being tied on a string, if you will, and one thing complements the other. So if you get somebody out of place, you could create some voids and give up some things. We've fallen victim to that. We've also fallen victim to some really good play. You think about the Ohio State receivers and trying to defend those guys. So the biggest thing we got to do is just try to take care of what we can do detail-wise, technique-wise, and then try to match up against this opponent. And those are the challenges every week you face.
Hey, Kirk, LA Clough, Hawkeye Beacon. I wanted to ask about Caden Weegan. I know you said he was kind of basically the only bright spot of the game the other night. Just a guy that came in from not only high school, but he came from JUCO, was a walk-on, waited his turn behind Cooper DeJean in terms of punt return, and now he's a factor on offense and kick return and punt return. I just wanted to ask you about what you've seen from him in terms of his mindset, his willingness to wait, and now being impactful on punt return, kick return, and offense.
Yeah, first of all, since he's been here, he just seems like he enjoys football, enjoys the group, being part of the team, and he's typically a pretty positive guy. So whether it's in meeting rooms or down working out, strength conditioning work, I can't say I've really seen him not upbeat very often since he's been here. And to your point, and that's a good point about him, having patience, because you got a guy like Cooper who's really exceptional. And I'm sure he would have loved to have been in there the last couple of years too, but being patient there and then stepping in, kind of the Jay Higgins story, and doing a great job. And he certainly did a nice job the other night. The irony the other night, I thought we would have it, silly me, I thought we'd have an opportunity in the punt return game. Based on what we had seen, I thought we had a real opportunity there to make some yards. I don't think they punted. So take that off the table. And then flipping it over, they'd given up 4 returns, had 4 balls returned on this entire season. So I didn't think we'd necessarily get an opportunity, and then secondly, didn't really see the ball coming out the way it did. So it's a real credit to Weege and also the entire unit for blocking the way they did. Just to find one positive thing to say about Saturday, so thank you.
Yeah, no punts. Chad Leistico, Des Moines Register again. Brendan Sullivan is a 69% career passer, pretty low mistake guy, so he obviously can throw the ball. You had you mentioned the third down failures the other day. You had 2 3rd-and-1s and didn't bring him in the game. I'm curious why you don't use him in those situations, the 3rd-and-1s or 3rd-and-1.5s.
Yeah, you could make that argument. Treat it like we've done that with the red zone, and you could make that argument. You can make it both ways. It's a little bit unsettling. Maybe bringing a guy in and. But I think I saw the Packers walking through the building. Kraft, I think, did a sneak, right? And apparently, I said that to one of our guys, and they said, well, I guess he did it in college, too. I don't know if he's a high school quarterback, but, yeah, that's something you could consider for sure. And, maybe it is something we need to look at. So, we'll talk about it as a staff, but, yeah, that'd be usually most of our stuff's a group decision, but Tim ultimately will make the call. Yep.
Jeff Dubroff, KCCI Des Moines. Kirk, for different circumstances, in years past, feels as if there are question marks around the quarterback position, whether it be, who's starting or the play of the quarterback at the time. Do you think there's a common denominator there, or is it a string of maybe just bad coincidences that these conversations are being had?
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question totally, but just about everything in general. Yeah. Typically, when they happen, it means you're not playing well enough to be undefeated or scoring as much as you like. I guess the best way I could say that is like a week ago, I didn't hear a word on Monday about we didn't play the quarterbacks right. So if you win and score points, typically things are well, and that's what an offense's job is to score points. Certainly, the quarterback's the most prominent player on an offensive football team, and. The other night, we basically didn't do much at all, if anything, in the first half. So, you got to look at everything, and usually it starts with the quarterback, play calling. But we're assessing those things all the time. And there's, if we had a exact answer that we knew was 100%, we'd be going with it. And we'll just keep an open mind, keep playing, and see what happens. Yep.
John Stebby, Cedar Rapids Gazette. At left guard, saw Ellsbury starting and then saw Cade Pieper get some work in there. Kind of what prompted that? Is there an injury there, or is it just kind of getting Cade some time? And kind of along those lines, what have you seen from Cade that's really stood out this year?
Sure. Yeah, obviously the injury was Bo being out. So, and that'll be the case this week too. So, we'll probably go the same way. Tyler's done a great job. I've talked about him a lot. Really has good position flexibility. And, he'll be our backup center this week, I would imagine, going into the game and start at left guard. And then Pieper's a young guy, obviously, a little different than kind of the exact opposite of Tyler. But really impressed us last year and had a really good spring ball and had a good camp. So, we think he's got a really good future right now. And so our plan the other night was to play both those guys, and we'll probably do the same thing this week. I mentioned Tyler being the backup center only because Cade's been working backup center too. But I don't think we want to have him doing 2 things this week. So we'll just keep him at guard and let Tyler float around a little bit. And his versatility, that part of that comes with his experience. He did a great job last year when Logan was out. Yep.
David Eichel, HawkeyeInsider.com. Kirk, you've over the years you've had a lot of young defensive backs, cornerbacks that you've thrown in, maybe have struggled in a game or two, but have gone on to have outstanding careers. Riley Moss, Desmond King was thrown in there early. John Nestor was listed as a starter going into the year. Probably didn't have his best performance on Saturday, but he's a guy that you've talked highly about, the team's talked highly about. How do you kind of make sure that he remains focused and locked in and confident in his process as he kind of continues to grow into the role that he wants to do?
Yeah, all he's got to do is talk to basically everybody else in the group that has gone through it, and pretty much every position. When you start out as a young player, it's not easy, especially if you're really young, which John is experience-wise. So it's going to be a process for him, and he's you take your lumps, you get back on your feet, and just go back to work. Don't have much time to sit around and pout, and you just got to try to learn from what you see on the tape, what you're hearing from the coaches and from other players, and go forward. But it's really the path for most guys. We talked about microwaving. You can't microwave an offensive line. It's really true to every position, and it's really rare when a guy just comes in and does really well right off the bat. It might happen occasionally, but very, very rare. And I think that's probably true at every level, at least certainly in college football or the NFL. Usually got to take some lumps too.
Hey, Kirk, Matt McGowan for Daily Island. You talked in the past about Riley Moss coming back for the extra season of eligibility and him really taking advantage of that year. Have you seen something similar from Jamari Harris?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's playing good football, and you hope all the guys that came back are going to not only want to play well but improve, and that's really why you practice, and that's why you invest all the time. So, and if you've got experience and some good experience on top of it, which he does, then that can really play in your advantage. And I think he's done a great job of that. And basically all the older guys are doing that, and we just need them to keep leading and bring some other guys with them. But yeah, no, he's doing a great job. I'm really glad he's in the program. Okay, see you guys Saturday. Thank you.